2. That's the number of players that have had more goal contributions in the Premier League than Heung-min Son since 2016-17, Son's first full season in the Prem. Those players are Harry Kane and Mohamed Salah. That means that for over half a decade, the only players who have been more prolific than Son in the Premier League are guys that will undoubtedly go down as club legends for their performances during that period, and in Kane's case, maybe the greatest player in his club's history. Yet, compared to these two, Son is very much an afterthought, if a thought at all. Now, the purpose of this video is not to debate the legacies of players and why certain players get more shine than others. It's mainly to try and put Heung-min Son's Premier League career, and more specifically his 2021-22 season, on the pedestal it deserves to be on. To put into context exactly what we're dealing with here, when I'm talking about the discussion around Son, when the Football Writers Association voted for the Footballer of the Year at the end of April, Son only received 2 votes. That's surprising, but semi-understandable. Mohamed Salah and Kevin De Bruyne had superb seasons and played on teams that were firmly entrenched in a battle for the title. However, when the Professional Footballers Association released their nominations for the Fans Player of the Year award and Son didn't even make the 6-man shortlist, things started to become a bit more confusing. Would you like to know these 6 players who did make the shortlist? Because it probably made me laugh harder than any episode of Friends ever did. He missed out not only to Mohamed Salah and Kevin De Bruyne, but to Phil Foden, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Declan Rice, and Conor Gallagher? Yes, Conor Gallagher was nominated ahead of Heung-min Son. Remember, this is a Golden Boot winner we're talking about, and Son's journey to that award has been a difficult and gradual one. In the summer of 2016, not even a year after his £30 million move from Bayer Leverkusen, he wanted to go back to Germany, and Wolfsburg offered him that opportunity. It was only at the end of the window, when Son had one foot out of the door, as one source puts it, that Mauricio Pochettino persuaded him to stay. Son was a different player then compared to who he is now. In fact, Son's entire game has evolved. His main value add has changed from being a selfless winger who was happy to hold the width and do all the running up and down the line into a cold-blooded sniper inside the box. He scored just 20 goals in 73 games for Hamburg and 21 in 62 for Leverkusen. Look, those are 41 more goals than I've ever scored and solid numbers for a youngster adjusting to a new league, but not quite the production you'd expect from a future Premier League Golden Boot winner. His first full season at Tottenham saw him reach his highest goal tally in a season, reaching 14 league goals and averaging 0.61 goals per 90 minutes. That was just a taste of what was to come though. This graph from an article written by Jack Pitt-Brooke and Mark Carey for The Athletic, which I've linked in the description, shows the change in Son's shot locations over the past 6 seasons. Before this year, there clearly seemed to be a large tilt toward the left-hand side of the box. To the left. And that seems obvious, as for most of that time, Son played as a left winger, and would cut inside from the left to get these shots off. The average shot distance is also higher for every year prior to this one, except for 2017-18. This past season, however, his shots have been a lot more central and closer to the goal. That in and of itself lends to a higher goal tally. This was no accident though. For much of this season, Kane has occupied a much deeper position on the pitch to try and make the most of his exceptional passing ability, and that has allowed Son to occupy areas a more traditional number 9 would. In this graphic, again from the article mentioned earlier, it can be seen that Son's goal production from a goal and expected goal standpoint was higher than all of his previous seasons in North London. But what's really interesting is that he took fewer shots and had fewer touches in the box last season. Also, his expected goals per shot was far better, This means that Son's goal-scoring boom was not solely down to taking more shots, because he in fact took fewer. Actually, it was down to his increased efficiency with his shots, which is mostly down to him getting into better scoring areas in the box. Getting into good positions is one thing though. You still need to convert the chance when you get it. This is yet another area in which Son excels in. I don't think it's too out of pocket to group Son in there with the best finishers in Europe. He has consistently overperformed his expected goal tallies, and often by a pretty big margin. Since 2017-18, which is the first season the stat is available on Football Reference, Son has outperformed his XG by more than 22. So, in effect, Son has scored 22 more goals than an average player would have given the chances he's had. A big driver of this is his natural two-footedness and the versatility with which he can finish chances. From near-post smashes to far-post placements to naughty chips that should have Pringles shivering in their boots. The bottom line when you add all of this together is one of the best goal scorers in the world. Someone who has turned himself from a selfless provider, happy to work in the shadows, into a superstar who so often grabs the attention with moments of brilliance. And yet, that isn't enough. Despite all he's done for Tottenham over the years, despite his remarkable evolution as a player, and despite his efforts landing in the Premier League record books for the rest of time, he still might be one of the most overlooked players of his generation. This was my attempt to rectify that.